Great. Thanks a lot, Las Cian Corla. We have a crisis here. We have a crisis in terms of the number of apprenticeships that are being commenced. We have a crisis in terms of the skills shortage that is holding back our ability to tackle our housing crisis. And therefore we have plans and announcements and so on from the government and a target of 10,000 apprenticeships a year by 2025. Interestingly, Deputy Bruton was speaking earlier about his experience when he was the Minister, and I think if you go back to 2016 you'll find that the government then announced a target of 9,000. So we are, what, 7 years on, and the government is increasing its target by 1,000 and pushing it forward to 2025. It doesn't smack of very significant ambition. Why is this situation the way it is? What's the kind of fundamental reason for the lack of apprenticeship opportunities and people taking up apprenticeships? And fundamentally, it's about reliance on the private sector. Like so much in our economy, so much in our society, the problems that we face are basically because the government has outsourced responsibility to the private sector. When it comes to educating people to work in our schools, when it comes to educating people to heal people to work in our hospitals as nurses, doctors, etc., we don't outsource that to a for-profit health sector or for-profit education system. We say the state is going to educate people so that they're able to provide these necessary skills. But when it comes to construction, for example, or which is going to be a very vital area like climate response in all its myriad of forms that will take, largely we say that the responsibility there is that we're relying on the private sector to provide apprenticeships. And that simply isn't happening. To take the case of the construction sector, we know that employment has grown in construction by 50,000 since 2013, but apprenticeships have not increased to any significant degree, and in some areas, like in the wet trades, they've actually decreased. That's linked to the change in the model of the construction sector and the reliance on subcontractors and kind of layers of subcontractors, so small companies and very little direct employment, a massive decline in direct employment. But that's now a fundamental issue. That's a fundamental block in terms of addressing the skills shortage to be able to build homes at scale in order to address the housing crisis as quickly as is possible. It's an issue that they've discussed in Britain, and the Industry Skills Plans UK Construction Leadership Council stated that in order to improve apprentice numbers, to increase skills training and diversity in the industry, it's essential to increase the levels of direct employment. But there's no way to compel the private sector to increase the levels of direct employment. They've moved to this really horrendous, from the point of view of workers, model of how the whole construction sector is organised. And so what it clearly points towards is the need. It's another very significant argument for a state construction company. There's a very important paper published last week by Dr. Rory Hearn and Phil Murphy, which makes the case, including the case in terms of apprenticeships. They state the skills shortage cannot be resolved until we create job security within the construction sector. A state construction company which offered quality permanent employment, properly paid apprenticeships, improved wages and employee benefits, e.g. improved pension provisions, early retirement schemes, sickness pay and death and service compensation, better regulation and improved safety and quality standards. And that the private sector isn't set up to provide the apprenticeships on the scale that is required, is not attractive to workers for a variety of very understandable reasons. And therefore we should stop outsourcing this to the private sector and set up a state construction agency.